Hi everybody and welcome back to the Gallowgateshots YouTube channel and Always Smiling Faces podcast. Just before we do go ahead with the interview with club legend and club captain Bob Moncur, I just want to say a special thanks to Tom Kett Tyres and Tyre Spot for making this opportunity arise for us. It's been an absolute honour to have such a legend like Bob Moncur on the channel. Thanks for watching and enjoy the episode. Hi everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Always Smiling Faces podcast on the Gallowgateshots YouTube channel. I am Chris, host once again, joined by Matthew, and we have a very special guest with us today, club legend, club captain Bob Moncur. How are you doing, mate?
Absolute pleasure to be here on this great occasion. Hopefully we're going to be celebrating after the Wembley years.
First of many, hopefully. Fingers crossed.
Yes indeed, yeah.
So thanks to everybody who has arranged this one. We'll go through those thanks later on in the podcast. But as you can see, we're on St. James's Park. We are in one of the corporate boxes as well. So first of all, Bob, I want to mention St. James's Park. So looking around you right now, how much has this changed?
Well, there's a very, very good quiz question that I often say to people is that I came down here in 1960 as a 15-year-old boy, and I was on the ground staff. And we used to have to sweep the terrace, not like it is now. It was a wooden stand, and there was no east stand. There was the Leazes end and the Gallowgate end, which wasn't covered. Neither of them were covered. Well, the Leazes was covered, and the pitch was absolutely dreadful because we used to have to sort of try and keep it in decent order, but it was impossible because it was just, if you like, a diamond. If you go in the middle of the goals, if you went out to the halfway, it was a diamond, and all it was mud. It was just mud, and we as ground staff boys, you used to have to get one of these big rollers that farmers, you guys are too young to remember, when the horses used to pull the rollers.
Yeah.
We were the horses, and we used to go up and down with this great big massive, width of this room, heavy, and they were all pulling, instead of horses, we used to pull it up and down to flatten the mud. That's all we did. It was just flattening the mud, simple as that. Of course, them days it was just, and the only bit of grass was on the wings and the corner flags. Because that's where the diamond didn't get. There wasn't as much traffic on the wings, obviously, as there was through the middle and at the goalmouth.
And now, obviously, looking around, everybody else does that job for you.
And I'm going to a little quiz for people who are thinking about Newcastle. There's one thing here since I've been here, it has never ever changed. Any guesses? Any guesses? It's still here.
You.
No. Well, that's a good point. Yeah. But if you look from the Leazes end to the Gallowgate end, you'll see there's about 1.5 meters drop.
On the slope.
Yeah. And that's slope. Never changed in all these years. There used to be a hump in the middle as well, but they've flattened that out. But that's the thing. And you look at it, you can see the boards. And if you go down and down, you can see it is still it's 1 meter and a bit anyway of down that way. Because when I was skipper, depends where the wind was blowing, I used to work out, hang on, I want to be kicking downhill second half if we're struggling a little bit. So that all used to influence me a little bit about which way to kick in the first half.
Do you think that's still the case now as well? Players will go in with that mindset thing and we've got the slope now.
No, I don't think so. No, I think nowadays this stadium here is absolutely fantastic. You could not imagine what it was like in the old days. And now, going to a football match. I obviously didn't go a lot of matches. I was usually playing, but being a spectator now, and I've seen, there was very few ladies used to come to matches. Now there's ladies coming and kids and all this, and I think the sport is magnificent now for facilities. In the old days, it was a bit tougher than that, and it was a challenge to come to a football match and stand in amongst the crowd, I'll tell you.
Yeah. My dad always said about sitting at the front. His dad, my granddad, packing his feet and peanuts, tenner a bag and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah. Well, I remember the guys going up and just, somebody not that long ago says, my dad used to show because they come around with the boxes, the wicker boxes with the nuts in it, and there would be people like 30, 40 yards away, nuts, to throw your tanner down, and he used to throw the nuts straight up, and if they missed, the lad just used to give them a bit. That's what it was like in them days from the red track. It was a good throw, but not either. But that was good old days.
Obviously, St. James's Park, we've had some huge games here, but we've got a huge game coming this weekend. So lean on to the playing in big games and cup finals. If you're on the build up to that sort of game and yet you've played in many yourself, how does that affect you, and how did it affect you as a player compared to what it does right now?
Well, I think all the big games I played in, which included playing for Scotland at Hampden Park against England, and the Fairs Cup, of course. I think the Fairs Cup was quite good for us because we got in through the back door. We were finished 10th in the league, and the way you got into was because the 2-city rule, you only have one team from one city. So we finished 10th in the league, got in, and it was a bit of a bonus to us. We didn't realise what we'd got into. And I think we never ever, we had a great side, man. We didn't have any brilliant players, but we just had good pros and good players. And that was part of the success of the team. No prima donnas. And I think we just got into that, and we were playing a league game here against Manchester United, flying out to maybe Lisbon, whatever. And it was like a big holiday for us. And we didn't realise just how well we were doing. So I don't think we ever treated it we actually treated it a bit of a jolly. So we're playing Feyenoord or whatever. Oh, it's fine. We'll go to Holland. And so that was the attitude. And we just went and.
Do you think that had a positive effect on the way you approached the games as well?
Well, I think it did, because we weren't under any pressure. We weren't expected to win it. We were, we were underdogs in all the games we played. So I think that made a big difference. We never used to go, I'm a bit worried about tomorrow. Now, going to Wembley is a different sort of scenario, because you work your way there and it's a big thing. But we as players, we just got on great and went out and did the job.
What's the feeling like around the city when you're speaking to fans? So obviously everybody knows what it's like these days.
Yeah.
Was it exactly the same back then?
Maybe, yeah, it's similar. Yeah, I used to go shopping. I used to always go shopping on a Thursday with my missus, and I used to go down Northumberland Street, and every Tom, Dick and I, oh, Bob, you're right. But we used to do it, and I couldn't imagine now the lads going to Sainsbury's and places like these days. But in our day, we did that, and so it was just natural, and stop and talk to people. And it was good because, you actually realised that you were quite a celebrity, if you like, and just talk to people. I still do that. I still, when I go to Sainsbury's, I still get people come up and say, oh, Bob, remember the Fairs Cup? I say, yeah, I do. and you talk, and it's good, but you're actually, you're an ambassador for the club every day, every hour of the day. Every week, every day of the week, because wherever you go, somebody's going to come and talk to you, and they'll say to you, "Can you remember, Bob?" And they'll say, "I met you at a club way back in 90."
Did you pretend?
No, I do my best. I say, "Oh, where was that then?" No, and then my missus would say, "Who was that?" Because the actual one of the big things about I realised that you become a bit of a celebrity. That I was again walking down Northumberland Street one day, and a guy came up and said, "Oh, Bob," and I stopped because he was, "Hello, Bob, how are you doing?" And he had his missus with him, and I had Camille, my wife, and he started. He says, "How's the kids?" And he was asking me, and I'm trying to work because I always like to get in a conversation. Think, how do I know this guy? And this bloke was saying, "How's Angela and how's Paul, my 2 kids?" And I'm going, "Yeah." I'm thinking, who is he? And anyway, he said, "Great to meet you, Bob. Thanks so much." And I says, "I've never met you before," but I thought I knew him. And he walked away, and I could see his missus going, "Who was that?" I don't think she knew who it was, but it was just that's the kind of thing. And I think certain people take it on board. I realised early on, because I think I was captain of the club when I was 24. So you realise at a young age you've got to take this on and get on with it. There's no use trying to be ignoring people, because I wouldn't do that anyway. But out of courtesy, you talk to them, but you can talk for hours to the fans that come. And now, because I've got very little else to do, it's just great when I go shopping, people chat away and stand there for 10, 15 minutes.
Do you feel that's changed as well now, where you still get, obviously, people mention about the Fairs Cup and things like that. Do you feel as if now it's, what do you think of the team right now?
Oh, yeah.
The lads are doing so well.
No, they all ask the same questions. What, like, you think we'll win at Wembley? And I wish I knew the answer. Put a bet on, wouldn't I? Oh, I'm not allowed to put a bet on. So I think I still like talking about the game, and I've got time to spend with people, because I'm not rushing around like when you're in business and doing certain things. So it's just a great feeling that to think all these years people still, and it's usually you might get a young girl come up and talking to you and say, "My granddad remembers you." So you talk about her granddad, he'll be delighted to get a photograph, a selfie, and obviously the granddad is our era. And that's just a nice feeling as well. So I'm very, very fortunate. I've been around this city long enough, and I love it. I remember the first time I came down in 1960. I was playing for the Scottish schoolboys. I was captain of the schoolboy team And I remember coming by train on a Monday morning into Newcastle, and it was peeing down. And I saw the Tyne Bridge, and I thought, doesn't look very exciting, this place. And then, of course, the rest is history. I got to meet my wife, etc. We've been here off and on for a lot of years. Well, we've been in the same house for 35 years.
It's an easy place to fall in love with.
It is, yeah, absolutely. And the other thing was, I could have went. I had trials at Manchester United. I could have went to Celtic. Could have went to Rangers, but I chose Newcastle because in Scotland you couldn't become a professional at 15 years of age, whereas down here they had an apprenticeship scheme. So I came down at 15, as did David Craig from Northern Ireland. Him and I became pals. He was another great player.
Yeah,
still around. David, we became great pals, and we did everything together. And I fell in love with Newcastle. So it was just up the road from me as well, because I was only living in Edinburgh. So and then
not far to go, is it?
Not far to go. It was 2.25 hours by car. I can do it a bit quicker now because
you got faster car now. We're talking about the city and how much it feels to the fan base, and if we go back to your days playing, your emotion going into these sort of finals, well, not just finals, semi-finals, where it's just that one step away, reaching that ultimate dream, really, of lifting a trophy for the club. Does your emotion and mindset change slightly going in those games? I know you mentioned you tread as a lad's holiday when you were going places, but does that start to change slightly the closer you get? I
think it did start. As I say, when we first started off, it was a jolly here and a jolly there. But then we played Rangers in the semi-final, which was, about the riot as well.
Well, we were going to get on to that. Okay. No, it's led us on brilliantly, to be fair.
So, then it was getting a bit serious because I think, hang on, if we beat Rangers, which I, as a Scotsman, not that I ever played in Scotland, I did as a kid, but not for any club. I came down here as a boy, signed on here as a kid at 15. But Rangers and Celtic were big clubs, and we got Rangers. And I know. Then I thought, we beat Rangers, and I fancied us to beat Rangers because I played with some of the guys in the Scottish team, so I knew what they were like. I knew Scottish football as well, so I was quite confident that we would take Rangers on and beat them because we were good at the back, we were well organised, and we had Wyn Davis, who was just a giant heading the ball. Pop Robertson, great goal scorer. So I was quite confident, but we had 5 Scotsmen in that squad, and when we went to play Rangers up there in the first leg, when they got the Ibrox, I could see they were nervous. I mean, and I spotted that, and I said, "What's the matter with you?" And Tommy Gibb, Jimmy Scott, Jackie Sinclair, was the one, John McNamee, who was an ex-Celtic player, by the way, Big John. And I could tell, and I said, "What?" I said, "We'll beat these. We're better." And I actually chatted to them, said, but they were absolutely physically. I could tell they were nervous because every time you went to Ibrox, if you were playing for him, you used to get hammered, didn't they? So it was always a place where we always get beat here. But I said, we are better than Rangers. And as it turned out...
Is that something you would do as captain?
Yeah.
Big everybody up, saying, this is water in the park.
But I was lucky because I knew Scottish football, didn't I? And I was Scottish myself, and I could see the lads weren't very... you could see they were tense. And just by saying, we'll beat this.
Well, with the 0-0 in the first leg, could you see that nerve still sort of being in the game? Or
no, when we're 0-0, and we played well up there.
Yeah.
Waddy McFall saved a great penalty.
Yeah.
And then once that happened, we came away. I think it was 75,000 people there that game. And when we came down here, I was confident we'd beat Rangers. And sure enough, we did. And I think 2 Scotsmen, Jackie Sinclair and Jimmy Scott, they scored the goal. So, and then they had the riot, which, in all fairness, I know Rangers got a lot of bad publicity about that. But in fairness to the Rangers fans, you look at the Gallowgate end, that's where they were, and it was packed, and it was obviously they were drinking. They'd been drinking in the town, the city, and a few of them had drinks. But when that actual so-called riot happened, the Rangers supporters were, from the back. And their supporters were throwing cans onto the Gallowgate end, onto the track, etc. But they were hitting their own supporters in the back of the head with bottles. And so rightly so, they spilled onto the pitch. And that was in defence. They're getting hit with their own fans. And so I thought it was, when it was people say it was a riot, it wasn't a riot. It was just people behaving badly, if you like, hitting their own fans. And they spilled onto the pitch, no one else to go. So, and I remember after the game, I was pulled in to see the chairman of Rangers to get the presentation. you do a presentation, which never happened. And I got called up in the boardroom. I'm trying to think of the chairman's name. Can't remember. Anyway, I got pulled in there, and he was shaken. He was, he'd been shaken by what had happened. And anyway, obviously we won the game, we got through. But I remember, and Rangers got a lot of bad publicity for that. And I felt a bit sorry for them, because it was just a minority of people who were stupid. And of course, it was so-called riot. But during the game, when we were defending the Gallowgate end, and we were playing away. And I remember when I was playing sort of left-sided, and the paddock was here, and I'm playing away, and I'm sure I saw something. Go, shoo, what was that then? Did someone catches your eye?
Yeah.
And then and I saw another thing. What's that? And I couldn't identify, because you're playing the game as well. And the next thing I know, I'm sort of halfway up the 18-yard box. Willie McFall, the keeper, comes running. He hits me in the back. He says, "Bob, run, run!" And I turn around. I says, "Why?" He says, "Look behind you." And there they were coming on. So I beat them down the tunnel. I passed them. So again, I look back, and it was a sad thing for Rangers, and I didn't think they deserved all the publicity they got, because of just some idiot fans.
Yeah. My dad's always talked about that game, though. I mean, my dad was lucky enough to go to every home leg leading up to all the way to the final, and he always mentions about being with his grandma at the time, near the Rangers fans. And I'm sure he said something about someone came over the tannoy and said, if they don't stop misbehaving, we might have to call this thing off. And it sort of might have like the touch paper to some people have been a bit naughtier.
It was a great result for us, of course.
Massive.
The two Scots lads scored the goals, which I said, I told you beat them, didn't
you? Obviously, get to the final after that, and obviously going in that final, you're there. You've made it to the final. Once again, has your mindset changed at that point again, where you've reached it?
It's obviously starting to change a little bit, because we've come through all the legs, and we've got through. However we got through, and certainly in the final. But again, against that, Budapest Dosa, they beat Leeds, who were top dogs at the time, and Don Revie says that's the best league club team I've ever seen, because they had 9 Hungarian internationals. Now Hungary in them days were a good side. They had some great players. So Hungary was a good football nation, and they had 9 internationals. And so we're looking at that thinking, we've got a job on here. And, playing here, it was, they showed they were a good side. I think they had 9 internationals in the team. First half, it was sort of stalemate-ish, because, we were stopping them, and they were well organised and had some good players. And we're always wary of them breaking away. And of course, until we got the goal, when Wynn headed it down, I followed up and scored. And then that was the start of realising, hey, we can, because we need to get a good lead to go out there, because I knew it'd be tough out there. So anyway, and the second goal I scored, sounds cocky, that doesn't it? Second goal. It was a bit of an accident, I think. I just took it on my chest, did a 1-2, kept running, and I kept running. All of a sudden, I found myself on the edge of the box, and I thought, oh shit. What do I do now? So I just hit it. And sure enough,
it doesn't look out of place in modern day football, if I'm being honest. I've watched the goals back, and I watched the goals back.
I just because I kept going. I didn't have any plan. I was just doing pass it, and then when I hit it, and it wasn't the greatest shot in the world, but it was accurate. That was the main thing. And Frank Clark, who had never scored a goal ever for the club, he came and says, "You jammy bounce for 14 times or so." I said, "I don't care." I went to the back of the net. But it was just a great occasion. For me, I remember I did that night, I had promised to go and do a presentation down at, where what do you call the place in town now? With the car park and all the
gate.
The gate.
Yeah.
The gate used to be a dance hall.
Right.
Your mum and dad and them. What was it called? Was it the Mayfair? I think it was the Mayfair. And I had promised to go down there on the night of the Fairs Cup first leg final for a parliament. It was an outstanding date. So after I scored the 2 goals in the final here, I had to get ready and go down and leave. Saw the press box, but I had to go down. And the people at the dance hall didn't even know what had happened. So I was that quick, got ready, skipped all the press stuff. Down there, I went in. And they said, "What's your score? What's your score then, Bob?" I says, "We're 1-3 now." And they couldn't believe that. And I says, "You'll never guess who scored."
2.
Yeah, 2. So it was a great night for me. But I remember I was proud of myself because I kept that appointment. And in view of all the other things, I could have said, no, I'm sorry, I can't. I said, no, I promised this guy I'm going to go. So when I turned up, it was I don't really expect me to turn up, but I did.
You didn't score like that many goals. I mean, I know you see centre halves now; they sometimes score a lot of goals in the modern game. But like, were you always trying to get on the score sheet? Like, do you always have an eye for a goal as like growing up and stuff? I mean, like you say, you found yourself in the box twice, and that or was that just couldn't believe your luck?
For those people who are not old enough to remember, I actually scored. It's a good quiz question. This, I scored 3 goals over 2 legs. Which foot did I score them with?
Your left.
Yes, and I was right-footed, and that's a big thing because everybody assumed I was right-footed, but I scored 3 goals all with my left foot. And when I say to young kids nowadays, when I say to them, "What foot do you kick with?" and if they say left or right, I say, "No, that's not the answer, son. The answer is both feet." Because I worked hard on David Craig and I used to come back. As I say, he came from Belfast. He used to come. In an afternoon after doing all the work and like cleaning the stands and all the rest. We didn't get much football time. We were like slaves at the time. We used to come back in the afternoon, get a ball, and the old gym used to be out there, and there was 2 goals with chalk, on the brickwork.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And when I used to hit the ball against that, and we played it like squash, but you could only use, you have to hit the goal, but you could only use your bad foot. So you imagine trying, and when we first started, we're hopeless, trying to hit with your bad foot. It missed the target, going everywhere. But as we got better and better, and that helped me, and people actually, a lot of people think I was left-footed, but I wasn't. But it's a good lesson to kids to you kick with both.
So we've got that wall to thank for the 1969 first goal.
Good point. Yes, good point, Matty. Yeah, that wall. Yeah.
Like you mentioned, obviously we do unbelievably well in that first leg. We're 3-0 up.
Yes.
And is there any part of you thinks we've won this at that point with still 90 minutes of football to play?
Well, no, 3 we knew because we knew they were a good side, and we had been threatened by. You could see they had the good players, and you couldn't allow them any sort of liberties. But when we went over there, I've told this story many times, so you have to bear with me. We went over there, and before the game, we're 3-0 up, and we're quite fancy chances now because we didn't leak many goals. We were quite good at the back. In fact, I think we're very good at the back. So I think in 3, and we'll not score 3, but they might beat us. But we'll not let 3 in anyway. Before the game started, what you had to do, unlike nowadays, one team would go out on the pitch and warm up first. So they came, spun the coin. I think we won the toss, and I said we'll go out now before the game starts to get warmed up, because you're not allowed to be on the same pitch at the same time. So went out there, and it was red hot. 11th June, was it? 9th of June? 11th of June?
11th of June.
11th of June, summer, out in Budapest. Went out there, it was clammy, it was red hot. Kicked the ball around for 2 minutes. I said, stuff this. I said, we're going to be knackered before we start. So I went in. I brought the lads off. I said, come on, let's get back in. Let's get into the dressing room. And when I got in there, Joe said, what are you doing? I said, I brought the lads in because I says, if we stay out there, we'll be knackered before the game starts. And he went, oh, right, okay. He says, I'll go and have a look. So he goes out. And I always remember the dressing room had like saloon doors, like you see in the cowboy films,
yes.
Yeah. So he barges out because Joe was quite a character with a cigarette in his mouth. Out he goes, and he comes back and tells him, he says, you're right. He says, they are bloody good, they are. Thanks, boss. He says, and then he said something, you need to be on your toes tonight, boys, to get a result. And he walked out. That was like Joe, team talk, never mind all the tactics. That was it. Get out here, you do all right. Of course, we got hammered in the first half, absolutely slaughtered. And it was 2-0 at half time. And they were really fancy their chances. Willie had made a couple of great saves as well. The 2-0 didn't really tell the story. So we came at half time and devastated. And Joe wasn't there because he was in the middle of the stand, so he had to walk to get to our dressing room, which was in the corner. So we're all sat there, and I remember sitting with Frank Clark, who was vice skipper. Frank and I used to, run the show, if you like, on the pitch. Sat there, heads down, and there was sweat, and there was a pool of sweat in between my legs, just dripping. Devastated, as was Clark, and the dressing room was silent. And then I said to Clark, I says, if ever we need the gaffer to give us a lift, now is the hour. And I was just devastated. And then all of a sudden, the door bursts open, and it's Joe Harvey, cigarette in mouth. He came in like John Wayne, walks in, looks around the dressing room, and he goes, what's the matter? I says, what's the matter? I couldn't believe he'd said that. I says, we're getting stuffed, boss. I says, we don't know what to do. And I gave him all different points of problems. I says, that's what the... Oh, I'm not swearing. I said, that's what the effing problem is. I said, so don't tell us, what's the matter? And he went, and he looked around and he went, there's no problem. And I says, what? He said, there's no problem. And then I'm starting to actually, there's no problem? We're 2-0 down, we're getting stuff, and there's no problem? And he says, I said, what do you mean there's no problem? And I went through all the things that were going wrong. He says, all you've got to do is go out there and score a goal. I said, score a goal? We've never been over the halfway line, never mind score. Woody's made 2 great saves. I said, what do you mean? He says, I'm telling you, all you got to do is score a goal. And I'm thinking, is he real? Is he been drinking? And then he says, all you got to do is go score a goal. And I said, well, how will that work out? He says, because these flipping foreigners, I'm using different words, obviously. These flipping foreigners will collapse like a pack of flipping cards, or what's that effect? And he said that 3 times, and he just walked out. And that was his team talk at half-time. What happens? We'll go out 3 minutes at half-time, score. What happens? They collapse like a pack of cards, and we beat them 3-2 in the night. So it was a 6-2 in aggregate. And Joe, that was the greatest team talk I've ever had. And whether in fact he was bluffing, which I think he was, it worked for us because we just went out. And we went over 40 years later. They invited us over to celebration. They said that goal killed them off because they were fancying their chances. And just in the second half, they thought they would get 3 or 4 goals, but that one really. I wasn't very popular and hungry when I went there.
It was you scored straight after half time, wasn't it?
I scored. That was my 3rd goal. Yeah,
crazy.
Left foot again.
Thank you, that wall. Thank you.
Absolutely, yeah.
Obviously, on the back of that, you get to lift the trophy. What was that like?
Well, that was interesting because with the game finished, and don't forget there wasn't many Newcastle United fans because there was a visa problem. To go to Hungary in them days, you couldn't just willy-nilly, like you go to Spain or whatever. You had to get visas. And I think there was a couple of planes went from Newcastle, organised by supporters. Our wives went in them planes. They went and paid the way to go and support us. And there was also people who went, tried to get hungry by all means. Buses, over the channel, vans, it was an adventure because don't forget, in the Fairs Cup, it was an adventure for the fans as well. It was a new thing for them. They'd be travelling abroad, going to Holland, wherever, Spain. It was great for them. And I think there's probably maybe 500 or 600 people, fans, had travelled. So there wasn't like that many people, supporters there. But it was just, what was the question again? I forgot the question.
What did it feel like?
Oh, what did it feel like?
To lift the trophy.
The game finished, we'll get the trophy, we've won it, and and we get presented by Sir Stanley Rouse. And he was the chairman of the UEFA, or the European thing. And so up we go, and we get the trophy. Right, get that, fine. And then we do a lap of honour. And going round, and in fairness, even the Hungarian supporters, they all stayed. They were clapping us. So, and round we go. And all of a sudden, somebody jumps on my back. I'm going, get off. It was me, missus. Can you come on the pitch and run? Jump me back. So I was carrying her and did the lap of honour. And then, because we didn't get any medals, what we got was we went back to a hotel, both teams, and then I was called up to say, right, presentation, well done, Newcastle, blah, blah, blah. So Stanley will present you with your trophy. And it's a miniature.
You've got them in that bag, I think.
Have you got it? You want to see it?
Yeah, get it out.
That there is what we got. But you can see they're not very stable. But I had to go up and I got a tray of trophies. And I had to go, nobody particular. I just went, so I went back to the lads who were sat there having their drink and, you want a trophy, lads? They all took one each.
Were they expecting whiskey to be in them?
Well, no, but it was. I think I'm walking down here, all these trophies, and I've just got to go back to the table because I didn't know who to give them to. I just said, right, help yourself, boys. So whoever got a trophy, I know there was enough trophies for the squad, so they all got a trophy. But that's what we got. We didn't get any climbing up the stairs like you do at Wembley, like that. So it was just, and of course, then ensued a bit of a party, and Lord Westwood was chairman at the time when we got back to the hotel. He says, Bob, we're going to go and just go somewhere else, but you and the boy, and because the press boys used to travel with us. That's how it was. press boys would travel with us on the same plane, which made sense. And so go back and have a bit of a party. And Lord Westwood, being a Scotsman, he says, and get some champagne in, Bob. He says, but make sure it's the local stuff, not the fridge. Terrific. And we had a great night, sing song, all the rest of it. Just next morning, a few headaches. But John Cragg was in a bit of a state coming back, came back to St James's, flew back on the, that's right, we played came back on the Thursday morning, flew back and got into Newcastle Airport. And just before we landed, Joe Harvey came up, typical Joe, she's right, when we land, he said, you've got to get off first, because Joe was quite brutal, you know, this is what you've got to take that trophy out first. So what do you mean? He says, you've got to show this trophy out the door first. I said, I'm not doing that. I feel like Pratt. Because what you got to remember, Newcastle Airport is not like it was now. It was just a big building with a big terrace on top, roof terrace. So we'll fly in. Caledonian Airways, that's who they used to fly us everywhere. I always remember, because also the stewardess had the kilts and the tartan on. So I used to always like, and I think the one that brought us, it was something of air. I'm trying to remember the name. Anyway, I'm not going out first with a cover, all right, Pratt. So anyway, I was told this is what you're doing. And in them days, it was, you know, the plane, they would drop the steps down, and then the door would lift up over. So I've been told. So I'm stood with a cup thing, and we're out in the sort of the area where the people are watching. But I didn't know that. So when I walk out, all of a sudden I walk out, put the cup out for a massive rope. Bloody hell. And there was hundreds of people, thousands, well, hundreds on top of this thing. And we couldn't, bearing in mind what I said, it was almost like a bonus for us. We didn't realise how important it was. And then we had to get from the airport to here. Just come through down Barrack Road. Now, for those of you who are not old enough to remember, there was no road like there is now. It was there was no, you know, bypass.
Yeah.
So the bus had to go through Walsingham. You know that.
That's where my dad's from. My dad's from Walsingham.
Well, he'll tell you. There's a bridge there, isn't there?
Like a small bridge.
Aye, a small bridge.
Yeah.
It goes over the main, over the not, you know, where the pub is, a pub in the corner.
Aye.
Right. So anyway,
I'm just imagining a bus having to get over it.
Let me tell the story though. Where there was no double-decker bus, because a double-decker bus couldn't get under the bridge, could it?
Yeah, I was going to say.
So what they did was they got a bus, and it was Armstrong's bus, green and white. You'll see it in the pictures, and we all got on the bus. And what they'd done was, very cleverly, thinking, well, we've got to be able to show the cup out the bus. They got a big table and put it in the middle of the bus, opened the sunscreen, open. So what we did, we all stood on this table so as we could stand out on top of the bus, which is fine, great idea. So we're going along Wolves, getting into Walsingham. We're all having a bit of a time doing this with a cup and all the rest of it. Anyway, we're coming to the bridge, don't we? And I've actually got it in my hand and going, you know, to the supporters who were all lined going, hey! And as I did that, I hit a wire, an electric wire, and there was a massive spark. Honestly, I mean, it wasn't just like a little, it was whoof! And I went, bloody hell. And there was a mark on the cup, black mark, and it never was taken off. It was never taken off. And I could have been electrocuted, but for I think it was stood on the wooden table. I think that probably saved me. But then, you know, you imagine.
Bloody hell.
That was a good
tragedy.
I kid you not, yeah, coming back.
Walsingham's been in darkness ever since.
Scored a hat trick. Scored a hat trick, got killed. And then we came and down Barrack Road, which is, people were lined through Cowgate and all the rest of it. And then you come in, and when you're coming down Barrack Road, you could see in the gap between the stand and the old Lees's End, and you see hundreds and hundreds of people. I think everybody took the day off in Newcastle. Absolutely fantastic feel. And then we realised, I think then it sort of hit, bloody hell, we've done something a bit special here. But even then, we were just still on a good, we've done well, we've won the cup. But I didn't realise the significance of that at the time, because I'm 24 years of age. You're saying all the right things about, oh, it's great for the supporters and all the rest of it, but you don't really understand it. It's only all these years later, when the first games I came to, when we got back, when the Premier League started, 92, was it? 92, I think it was. And I came here as a supporter, and everybody had black and white shirts on. And I thought, this is fantastic. And I then realised what we had done. And now, as time goes on, of course, it becomes more and more sort of that was some achievement. So it's been great, and hopefully Kieran can take that title off me, the last man to win a cup.
Did you?
But he's got to score 3 goals as well.
He does. He does. With his wrong foot as well. With his wrong foot.
Yeah.
Did you obviously when you obviously got that cup in your hand? Did you think going forward to 2023, where we are now, that you would be the last one to do that?
Absolutely not. No, I saw that when we won the First Cup. I saw that as a springboard. I thought it was a springboard. But Newcastle at the time, it was different directors. I'm not blaming anybody because it was a thing that happened. But I thought, because we made a bit of money out of it, but the only trouble was it got taxed. Not us. I'm talking about the club. Obviously, the way, because you're getting 50,000 people here and good gate money, we got decent bonuses, but nothing spectacular. And then they decided to build on that team. And then they bought Jimmy Smith in. Jimmy Smith was the first buy. Joe went out and bought Jimmy Smith, and they paid 100,000 for him, which was quite a lot of money in them days. And the only reason they paid 100 grand was because they didn't want to pay the tax man. So if they bought Jimmy, they didn't have to pay any tax. So Jimmy came here because it was a bonus to we'll get another player in rather than give the tax man. And that was we should have built on that, but we didn't for some reason or other. We didn't, and not long after Pop went to West Ham, and things just didn't go too well. And then we changed, and we've got a new team, almost a new team, with Malcolm coming in, Jimmy Smith, and Tony Green, and people. Things changed. But I look back and think we should maybe have done better, or the club should have done better on that basis. Having beat some of the best teams in Europe, we're obviously a decent side, but for some reason it just never ever happened, and it really disappointed me. That it didn't happen because it should have done. I think now, if the same thing happened now, because I think it's actually happening now. What should have happened way back in '69 was what's happening now, getting the basis of the club right and building it block by block, block by block. And looking at the team now, you just think it's a different world, different game, but it's all for the better for the club at the minute.
It's a huge game coming up on Sunday.
Yeah, but being a bit of a cynic, and I know people say to me, you don't want to lose your title. But if you're asking me, I've watched since December last year when we looked like we could get relegated. Yeah. I've watched the team, as we all have done, is get better and better and get results. They've had a great run. Now, somewhere along, but you initially think, the bubble will burst. But I kept saying, well, actually, I don't see why the bubble will burst dramatically, because we've bought better players in as well. We've bought good players in. And the great rule about good players is, I remember Jock's team when he made the point when they won the European Cup. Can you remember this 1967? No, you'd be too young. Jock made the point of saying, somebody asked him, Jock, about it. He said, we are the first British team to win the European Cup, because no British team had won it before.
This is the Lisbon Lions,
yeah. So he made a great point of for Scotland. We were the first British team to win it. Anyway, and then somebody said, well, Jock, what makes you a great manager? And he went, great players. And I think I've always believed that. And Joe Harvey was great at getting good players in. Joe was never, he would admit, he was never the best tactician, but he could buy good players. And, you go back, he bought Malcolm, he bought Jimmy Smith, he bought Tommy. And he knew what the fans wanted here. So Joe was absolutely tremendous at doing that. But tactic-wise, he was hopeless. I can say it because no longer with it. But he just he'd make you play. He can make you play. And I think now the club, you look at the players we've got better and better. And we're not getting any fluke results. We are sort of consistent. And if we win on Sunday, fine, great. That's a start. To me, I'll be disappointed at the end of the season. I'll be very disappointed if we don't finish in the top 6. And I'll be disappointed if we don't finish in the top 4. Very disappointed if we don't finish the top 6, but disappointed we don't finish in the 4, because I think long way to go. But I just do think we've got the setup at the football club and everything they're doing is right. And the players we've got, and I think Kieran Trippier is a great skipper, and I couldn't think of a better guy to take my title off me than him, because I think I watch him. Not only is he a very good player, he's also a very good captain, because he's everywhere, isn't he? He's telling every Tom, Dick and Harry, even the referee, what to do and such things. So I'll be delighted. And originally I thought Alan Shearer would maybe take that title off me, but that didn't happen for him. But I think Kieran, I would like to see him take the title off me.
we've got a great chance, and Kieran has a great chance to take that title. So, as much as I hate to say it, fingers crossed that he takes it away from you, mate.
I hate to sort of say things, because not being involved in the football side now, I hate to sort of say things that might bounce back, and because you don't know, Eddie knows, and you always find a football club when somebody said to me, "Why did the manager do that?" I said, "Well, I actually don't know that, but there'll be a reason for it. When they leave a player out, people ask me, I said, well, I don't know, but I'm sure there'll be a reason why the manager's done such and such. And sure enough, there is some reason, but you don't know that because you're not part of it. But I think the club itself, from the coaching staff to Eddie through, and the directors as well, just I think it's looking good, and I'll be very disappointed if this is not the start of something big, because I think the feeling, and you know what it's like in City now, just fantastic.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to the next few years. But as I say, if you give me a choice, top 4 of the Carabao Cup, sorry lads, I've got to go for the top 6.
Oh,
we're taking cup.
So I'm taking cup all day long.
We're taking cup
all day.
Have you?
Yeah.
All right, okay.
We just want that silverware. Just want that. I appreciate it's a massive. We could talk about this all day, another podcast, and we know what it'd give us top 4. But I think with all that, to get that sort of proverbial monkey off your back, and get that piece of silverware, I think it'd be huge.
Yeah, well, it will be, but sorry lads.
Thanks.
Top 4 for me.
Yeah. Anything else that you would like to add just before wrapping up, mate?
No, I think we've covered all bases. Just thanks for sitting down and taking the time.
Pleasure,
Bob.
absolute pleasure.
And fingers crossed.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
We'll get it. We need it.
Right on, Kieran.
Thanks very much, Bob. Been a pleasure.
Okay.
It really has done. Thank you very much.
Thanks
everybody who has watched and listened to this podcast as well. Plenty more stuff coming this week on the channel as we build up to that cup final. Cheers.